Today we're going to be talking about a engine that has recently hit tier 0 that I covered yesterday from the YCS Bogota breakdown, and we are going to be looking at the adventure engine today and what is the actual problem card of the archetype. Now, this is an engine that can be found in about 65% of decks currently, or maybe more in top cut representation. I know at Detroit, for my regional, we had so much adventurer type decks that it was about 70% of the venue next to Eldritch, which was also running it, and Flunder. Now, overall, Adventure has been an interesting engine for all of us, and I would like to go through each and every card and talk about the whole engine. Starting off with the spell cards, with the 1-ofs being things like Draco Back and Journey, or Fateful Adventure. Draco Back, the Rideable Seed, is a free bounce, and it can come back once per turn if it is sent to the graveyard, no matter how it is sent. So this card, in all honesty, isn't really a problem if you look at it in a broad view, because most of the time I rarely use this card. A lot of people rarely use this card. They mostly use it to send it off of Magician Souls to get an additional draw. Same for Fateful Adventure. It's a 1 to 2 of, depending on the deck you're running. And most of the time people are just using it to search out your Griffin Rider to discard a card, or search out Enchantress to get the Enchantress in the graveyard. It really just depends on what you need at the time. But overall, these two cards right here, the 1-of spell cards, they're not really the problem. Now we would talk about the two, Aquamancer and Right. So Water Enchantress and Right of Artemisir, they are both 3-ofs in the engine, or 2-ofs depending on what you are running, but they both do the exact same thing. Water Enchantress gets to your right, and Right summons out your token, while it also grabs the Journey Destiny. Now, how the OCG dealt with this was semi-limiting the engine, then limiting the engine, making it where it really doesn't do much anymore. So that is one thing to talk about. Now, these two cards I could definitely might see getting hit on the list, but I feel like Konami really wants to push Illegal Knight, the new card from Dimension Force. And if they want to push this, it's going to have to compete with Griffin Rider. And so far from what we've seen, it's most likely not a super, because we know all the supers. And we also think it might be an ultra rare or a secret rare. If it's an ultra rare, it's going to match these three right here. And all I have to say, this card is definitely interesting, along with Griffin Rider being able to bounce 2 cards to summon this. And if you control, because it's the exact same summoning requirement in Griffin Rider. So during your main phase, control no monsters, or you control an adventure token special on this card. If you control an adventure token, target up to 2 cards in your opponent's control. Give this card to them, and if you do, return that target to those targets to the hand. So it's a 2-for-1 Draco Back, and it is a very interesting card. And Griffin Rider out here is the negate. I've been seeing a lot of people bring up Griffin Rider getting hit instead of something like Aquamancer and Right, because Griffin Rider has more utility than what people do. It is used in the Adventurer Synchro deck to be able to summon out something like Barone, and they use the tokens to summon out something like a Yazi or another level 7 Synchro. But I would have to say that, looking at it more, Griffin Rider is truly the problem, because it gives every deck some form of Omni Negate within only 2 summons, and that is counterintuitive to some hand traps. It's definitely a weird one to talk about, but it's definitely one of the cards that have been thrown up the most, because I asked a few people at the regional what they thought out of the engine would get hit. A few of them said Griffin Rider. Even now, people like Farfa are saying Griffin Rider too, and I am starting to agree with them. that Griffin Rider might be the one to go, even though we have Illegal Knight on the way. Now, we have seen in the past that decks getting new support, they still hit the deck, like back in 2020 with Orcust, Sky Strikers, and Salamangreat, and many others of those decks that got hit. They all were getting about 1 to 2 cards, and they hit the deck anyways. Instead of just lightening the blow, instead of banning everything, they should have limited everything. But with Wandering Griffin Rider, I definitely think it could get banned unless they just go the OCG route and semi-limit both Right and Wandering Enchantress. But I want to know what you guys think. Which part of the engine should get hit out of the 5 cards? But anyways, I've been Bolt Spider. See you guys in the next video, and goodbye.